and welcome to Coffee with Phil, where our goal is to help you live a life of purpose on purpose. We believe that we each become wiser through the people we meet and the stories we hear. So today, we want to connect you with someone new. To help you find the wisdom in today's story, here's your podcast host, Phil Strong.
Well, g'day everybody, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Phil. I'm really glad you've joined me today. Here I am sitting in my office. I've got the curtains shut, I've got the door shut, trying to keep the noise away, and honestly, I'm dealing with challenges. I have had so many technology challenges in the last 2 months with this podcast. If I wasn't so committed, I'd bang my head on the desk and I'd turn everything off and put it in the cupboard. But anyway, we've got to persist, don't we? We've got to persevere and we've got to push through. And that's what I want to sort of lead towards talking about today. I've got this thought that I want to share with you. This episode is called How to Live Life Without Going Pop. And I'm going to share some principles in that. But before I do in this introduction, I just want to set up, I suppose, what I've been going through and just to share why these things are so important for us to do well, or at least to try and do well. So in the beginning of the year, Kathy and I began to start talking about what our goals were and what our next stages were with regards to our own personal situation and family and property and right down to where we were going to live. We didn't feel like we were supposed to be moving locations. We just felt that perhaps our housing situation might be changing. We had lots of opportunities to chat about that and go for long walks while we were in lockdown 1 here in New Zealand. They were beautiful afternoons, and we'd take the dog and we'd go for a long walk around the block and just chat about it. We then had some time away with our family, and it was while we were just in that space of resting that we really felt the season was right, the timing was right. We kind of formulated this plan that we were both really excited about. We could see 2 or 3 steps that we could take, 1, 2, 3. And what was most important was that we were both on the same page. And we've kind of learned over, we've been married 24 years, been doing life together for 26 years. We've kind of learned that when we're not on the same page, we don't make decisions. But when we are on the same page, we see that as a way to move forward and to work towards making decisions. So ultimately, beginning of July 2020, we decided we would sell our family home. We've got a couple of steps in place that we were looking to make after that, but this was really the big one. And so we had already begun to clear out stuff. Well, confession, Kathy had already begun to clear out some stuff. She was tidying the house and getting rid of clutter, and we were tidying up some jobs on the outside and the inside. Got around our local friendly real estate agent, said, hey, look, this is our goal, this is our plan, this is what we want to do. And we're like, well, we can either move now or we can wait till the spring. We really sensed that the opportune moment was now. And so we were like, well, let's hustle it. Let's get things moving. And we invested in the best quality marketing that was available at the time, with videos and drones and professional photography and staging the house with a professional interior expert. And we got the house ready to launch. So that was beginning of July, and then the house was staged, the week of the 20th of July. We're like, this is great. The photos were done. The video was done. It was awesome. And then we're ready to launch the last week in July. We're going to go on the market. We've got a plan. We're going to do wine and cheese. We're going to get the neighbours in. Let's all go. And then 2 days before it goes on the market, someone walks in with a cash offer for our price. Exactly what we want, no questions asked, just here's what you want, let's go for it. And we looked at that, and I've bought and sold a lot of property, and the old saying, a bird in the hand is better than trying to find 2 in the bush, and we knew this was the one. So we said yes. We sold our house before it went on the market, and we're left there going, well, where are we going to live? And so we had to go about finding a rental. We think we're going to move towards building a house, so we're not ready for that. So lots of unsettling and settling. Now, the reason I tell you that is sometimes when life moves that fast, you get the speed wobbles. lots of change causes lots of trauma, which you have to deal with in a really healthy way. And I know for me, for Kathy, for our family, when there's lots of change and lots of trauma, we need to be really careful that we don't go pop. But it wasn't just change at home. There's change in my work situation. There's lots of factors changing in our community with what we call post-COVID, post-lockdown uncertainty. People are interacting differently. Business is different. Our financial security is in question because we're not sure if we're going into recession or, there's lots of unknowns, and this creates an unsettling inside of us. It creates a trauma, and if we don't deal with trauma well, we know that it can damage us. So I've got all these things going on in my world, and this is why today's podcast is so important. We've got to learn how to live life without going pop. Because if we ignore what's going on around us, then we can literally just step into each day thinking it's going to be normal. And when it's not normal, the dissonance, the disconnect within us causes us to have issues. And I see it happening all the time. Even at the moment, I'm constantly reminding myself, life isn't normal, but it is what it is. Now we've got to make the most of what life is. And I just hope today that as you step into listening to this session that I've recorded called How to Live Life Without Going Pop, you understand the context. My life has been chaotic, it's been busy. In fact, it's totally affected this podcast. I've been silent for 6 weeks because I've been without a house. I've got no studio. I've got technology issues. I've got my head so full, I just can't even think on certain things. These are all results of a hurriedness in life and a busyness in life that could potentially cause us to go pop. So, why don't you grab a coffee? I've got mine. Make sure you've got yours. Sit back, listen to this short session. It's about half an hour where I just coach you through 5 things that I do to make sure that I can live life without going pop. I really hope you enjoy them. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me via the social channel, and let's do life well as we learn to live life without going pop. Enjoy the podcast. Well, g'day and welcome to this episode. I'm really excited to share these thoughts with you today in this episode titled How to Live Life Without Going Pop. How to live life without going pop. In this session, I just want to share probably 5 thoughts or questions that I've got because, look, I understand that life is challenging. Recently, you've probably seen podcasts launched on that basis from me, at least. And I've got to say, if you heard the introduction to this episode, there's things going on in my world. And I've really been very diligent in working out how I can take care of myself, how I can make sure others are enabled to take care of me. And ultimately, I know that there are people that depend on me, not the least, of course, which is my family. And I really want to make sure that I live life without going pop. Now, I don't feel like I'm in a danger of dying. I don't think there's any health issues. I have, though, submitted myself to a yearly checkup with my GP, and I look forward to seeing the results come back all clear from those tests. That's just a process I put in place years ago. But today I want to share things about how to live life without going pop. Because if we can't handle what's happening in us and around us, then we have a negative impact on other people. I'm sure that you've got friends or family where from time to time you go, whoa, we just need to stay clear of that person. And that's life, isn't it? The seasons of life mean that we have challenges, we have struggles. Sometimes we just don't want to be around people. Sometimes we've got to deal with our crap before it makes a mess on others. Look, that's normal. But if you're consistently living life like that, you're going to become one of those people who has a reputation where everybody else just avoid you. And that means you're going to be lonely. That means you're probably going to get bitter and or twisted in regards to why doesn't anyone want to hang out with me? And so hopefully today in these, look, I've got 5 things on the list, and depending on how time goes, I might share a bonus. So sit back and relax, and let's go through these one at a time. I'm hoping that at least 3 out of the 5 or 6 things I've got here are going to help you. So let's look at the first one. And this is what I'm doing to make sure I don't go pop when things get tough. The first thing that I do, number 1, I'd like to share with you is I often sit down and reevaluate my priorities. By that I mean I challenge what I think is important and what I'm putting my time towards. You see, there's a big difference between what I do and what I should do. And sometimes when I get out of balance, when I get overwhelmed, when I get too busy, there is an opportunity there for me to spend a lot of energy and a lot of time doing the wrong things. But ultimately, I've put a priority on those things for a reason. Is that healthy? Is it the right thing for me to do? And should I keep carrying this load? So when I reevaluate my priorities, I bring it back to what are the most important things I need to do in this season of my life? Who is important to me? Why are they important to me? Is that something I need to maintain? And should I continue to live life under this pressure? So reevaluating my priorities, recently I discovered that I was putting a whole lot of energy into a few people that really, I'm going to say they didn't deserve it, but I don't mean that to be judgmental. What I mean by that is I was putting energy into people that really, the season was over, there's no reason for that to continue. And so I purposely made a decision inside myself to just shift the balance there and separate myself a little bit from the time and the energy and the personal investment that I was making in those situations. It's an example of me reevaluating my priorities. Now, don't get upset and think, "Oh man, you're so judgmental. You're so you're such a nasty person." Look, I'm not saying that these people are not lovely people, and they won't. And I'm not saying they won't remain friends. But I had to reevaluate what was important because I've only got so much time, I've only got so much energy, and I've only got so much that I can achieve based on what I put my focus on. So I reevaluate my priorities. I also have to say to you that, as you heard in the introduction, that this podcast was something that I really had to challenge myself on. You know, when I launched this or put the plans together to launch it in 2019, I really felt it was an important thing for this next season of my life to establish, to get a wide foundation put in place and to reach out and connect with, you know, I've got 100 guests that I'd love to interview tomorrow to re-establish connection and to share their stories with the world. But in the season of life that I've just had in the last 2 months, I really had to question if that was the most important thing to me doing. And so I reevaluated my priorities with regards to work. I reevaluated my priorities with regards to my time. What am I spending my free time on? And is it filling me up, or is it draining energy away? And so even the way that I spend my time off had to be questioned, had to be reevaluated. So the first thing that I'd suggest to you, if you're considering that life is tough and you're like, man, I'm just not really sure I'm coping, the first thing that I do when I get into that space is I know that I have to sit down and reevaluate my priorities. So I challenge you to do that. I want you to sit down with a piece of paper, a notebook or a phone, if that's how you work, and ask yourself this question. What is currently taking up my time that is causing pressure in my life? Write the answers down without having to judge them, having to evaluate them, or having to clarify them. Just write them down, because whatever comes out is what you need to work with. So what I want you to do is to reevaluate your priorities and say, what is it that I'm currently spending time on or energy on that is causing pressure in my life? And then the next thing you need to do is just say, is this truly important in this season? And once you've done that, based on your life's values, your beliefs, your family situation, and your work situation, you're going to identify which ones you can literally just put a cross through at the moment. For some people, exercise is incredibly important for them to maintain emotional health, physical health, and mental health. For other people, it's something that can come and go. And so it's not that what's right for one has to be right for the other. But you need to understand, what are my priorities and what am I prepared to shift off my shoulders for this season in order that I can live life without going pop. The second part of this, which is point number 2, is I want you to consider this question. Are you carrying unhealthy or unreasonable expectations? You see, the burdens that we carry on our shoulders, I've found in life, often come from unhealthy or unreasonable expectations. And largely, this comes from other people. So people have said what they want from you. They have put a demand on you. Perhaps they are drawing from you energy or time or effort or emotion. Are you carrying expectations that are not reasonable to carry in this time? And in this case, I'm assuming it's someone that you have a relationship with. I think it's really healthy to sit down with them and say, hey, look, I'm just reevaluating things. I'm feeling a little bit under pressure at the moment. You may use words like, I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling really tired, or I'm just needing to reevaluate things at the moment. And I just want to speak with you about how I feel in this area of life. Look, it takes a bold person to do this. But if this person is a friend or someone that loves you dearly, then they're going to want to hear this. They're going to want to understand this. They're going to want to journey with you. And it could be you say to someone, let's say it's your parents, and you say, hey, I just want to chat with you how I'm feeling at the moment. And I'm carrying this expectation whereby I need to be around here every couple of days to check in with you, to mow your lawns, and just to make sure that you're okay. And I'm just not really feeling like I can do that right now. Would it be okay if I found another solution to help you? And what you're doing is you're sharing your burden, and you're finding a solution to shift it somewhere else. Too often, people that I work with struggle because they're carrying expectations that other people have put on them that they just don't have the strength to carry. And in some cases, it's unreasonable. Look, I don't want to get into it too deeply, but some people literally use emotional manipulation to make you feel bad so that you will do what they want you to do. That is an example of an unreasonable and an unhealthy expectation that you may be carrying. And again, I'm not trying to judge anyone by saying this, but look, I see it time and time again. I'm going to take my issues and I'm going to twist things so that you feel bad, so that you do what I need you to do, because that's going to make me feel better. That is called emotional manipulation, and it's unhealthy. And sometimes if you can identify that in your life, you can disempower it. So if you think, oh my goodness, I know someone in my life that does that all the time, that person has obviously got some struggles of their own, and they're using you as a way for them to cope. Now, that's not a way for them to find healing, that's a way for them to cope. And there's a big difference. And you're being used, you're being abused, and you're being manipulated, and it's unhealthy. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they'll never get better, and you're only going to get worse. So if you identify someone that's being emotionally manipulative, and they're twisting things, and they're creating burdens in your life, you really do need to find a way to protect yourself and keep yourself healthy. So I talk to people about just putting up barriers or walls that minimize that expectation or that opportunity for someone to put their expectations on you. So I'll give you an example. There's someone that I know that approaches me and likes to tell me just how tough their life is, how hard things are, and just what a struggle it is. And they'd like to come and spend time with me so they can remind me how tough their life is. And look, I know this person has got plenty of support, and that I don't need to make myself available for them to complain and explain how tough life is. So what I do is I put a wall up. I say, look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to have time to do that this week. And I know that you already have, and I name the people, who are supporting you. So at this time, I want you to know that I'm encouraging you, I'm supporting you, but I'm not going to be able to have a coffee with you this week. I'm being very clear about what my boundaries are. And I'm not doing it in a way that's rude, I'm not doing it in a way that's judgmental, but I'm establishing boundaries for my own safety. So are you carrying expectations from other people that are hurting you, that are causing unhealthy burdens that might cause you to pop? You really need to identify them. On the back end of this issue of carrying expectations, I do need to say this. Are you carrying unhealthy or unreasonable expectations that you've put on yourself? Wow, man, I have seen so many people struggle in life because they have put burdens on themselves that are just wrong. They're unhealthy, they're too extreme, they're pressure. And I've got to say, in life, I know this is a risk for me. You know, I've said this before, if I've got a project deadline, if I've got something I'm really working hard on and I'm passionately committed to it, I've got to be careful that I don't kill myself in the process by putting unreasonable and unhealthy expectations on myself. Sometimes we are the person that likes ourselves the least, and so we're willing to abuse ourselves, we're willing to punish ourselves, we're willing to drive ourselves to exhaustion just to get things done. Now, I wonder where that comes from. Insecurity, fear of failure, wanting to look good in front of other people and not wanting to look bad in front of other people. You know, dig down and find the root causes for these feelings that are creating burdens, that are creating expectations that you're putting on yourself. You know, that was a deep line. You might need to replay that. But think about this. Am I carrying expectations that are unreasonable or unhealthy that I've put on myself? Go on. I challenge you. I dare you to have that chat with yourself. If you've got a loved one, a spouse, a partner, a really close friend or a family member, perhaps you'd be bold enough to ask them to make an observation in your life. Because sometimes you can't see your own issues. So why don't you sit down and talk to someone and say, hey, do you think I'm carrying unreasonable or unhealthy expectations for myself? What do you see? What do you observe? What do you notice? And how could you help me in a way that's wrapped in love and grace, because I just want my life to get better so that I'm not going to live life and suddenly go pop. So the first thing I shared with you was the process by which I use to reevaluate my priorities. And what I'm doing is this is in a season where I'm feeling under pressure, I'm feeling challenged, or I'm feeling like I'm just getting a little bit overwhelmed. Then what I do is I dial things back. I strip things out of my life on purpose to protect myself. It's just a way that I've learned to re-strengthen myself. So I withdraw a bit. I cut some things out of my timeline, my workload, or my emotional load, and I reevaluate. The second thing that I do is I make sure I'm not carrying the wrong expectations. And here's the third thing that I'm going to put in this, and that is this. I challenge you to challenge your excuses. Sometimes I sit with people and they're giving me the reasons why they do want to do something or they don't want to do something, and they are, in my mind, they're invalid, they're unwise, they're just not reasonable. And sometimes I know I have a mindset that stops me from seeing a solution, and in this, I'm my own worst enemy. The way that I think, the way that I'm programmed, the language that I use, and I've really got to dig deep to challenge that, because sometimes the excuses that we use, the thinking that we've got, needs to be reprogrammed. And in some cases I work with people and they might say, hey, look, I'm just not good enough for that. And I say, well, hang on, where did you learn that lie that you're telling yourself? Oh, but it's not a lie because I've proven it to be true. Well, just because you keep thinking the same thing and getting the same result doesn't make it good for you. So maybe you've got to challenge your paradigms. I had a situation recently where I was looking at this property situation, and I was looking at it through the solution that I'd already developed. And I'm going, you know what? That's what I want. It's the best idea that I've come up with. But it wasn't working. It just wasn't working right. There was a whole lot of issues around that. I'm going to share a podcast soon about how I make wise decisions, or how I do my best to make wise decisions, and I'll give you some tips in that one next time we have coffee. But in this case, I was sitting in the situation, and I was actually limiting myself by the paradigms that I was carrying, and I was the problem. And it was just a couple of questions that actually it was my son Jackson who was with me. He asked me a couple of questions. I went, oh, wow, my thinking is the problem here. And if I shift my thinking, I might find the solution. And it was just a really good opportunity for me to find a way out of the problem by challenging the excuses or the limitations that I was using. Here's the thing for you. What comments or reactions do you make that automatically disqualify you from finding a good way out of your problems? What are your excuses? Is there any negative programming in your thinking that is your default? And look, the honest truth is sometimes we can't see that it's in ourselves. So I'm gonna move from this into the next two things that I think are really, really important that I use that help me to live life, reducing the opportunity for me to go pop. So the first one was reevaluate priorities. That's what I do. I reevaluate my priorities. The second thing I do is I question myself. Am I carrying the wrong expectations? Are they putting pressure on me that I don't need? The third thing that I do is I challenge my excuses or my paradigms. Have I just got wrong thinking going on here? Is it my wrong thinking, my negative thinking, my false beliefs that is stopping me from finding the way out of this situation? The fourth thing, and I'm real big on this, is becoming more self-aware to provide better self-care. Becoming more self-aware to provide better self-care. So I've got to know myself. I've been preaching this for years in coaching and success seminars and even in business context, corporate conferences, one-on-one coaching, and I'm just saying, look, we need to know ourselves. We need to know ourselves well. I've learned what my limits are. I've learned that those limits change based on my energy and my emotions. I'm learning what my weaknesses are. I'm aware of what my strengths are. I know what I can do in a heartbeat because I'm good at it and I've done it really well many times. I'm understanding what my default weaknesses are that I need to reprogram and shift in my life. My self-awareness is something that I take very, very seriously. Maybe you need to stop and spend a season getting to know yourself better. Maybe you need to ask better questions to learn how you work. But you can't do that on your own because, like I said before, most of the time we're our worst enemy. Self-awareness comes from reflection. Self-awareness comes from taking time out to look at the ugly parts of our lives. Self-awareness is being willing to ask other people what they observe and being willing to hear the answers that we might not feel comfortable in. So one of the things that I do to make sure my life doesn't go pop is I become more self-aware so that I can take better self-care. So self-awareness is the first part. Self-care is the second part. What are the things that I need to do that fill my soul? What are the things that bring me joy? What are the things that make me laugh? What are the things that help me rest? I read this comment the other day that smacked me upside the chin and almost made me fall over because Recently I had some time off, and it was really good. I'm going to talk about that in another conversation. But I came back and I didn't actually feel rested. Something was going on, quite a few things are going on, and I walked back into the real world after being away, and just didn't feel rested at all. Here's the quote. This is what I read by Kerry Newhoff, who's a leadership. He's got a leadership podcast I really enjoy. He said this: how you spend your time off is not the key to survival. It's how you spend your time on. So what Kerry's saying is not so much how you spend your time off that has a big impact on you. It's actually how you spend your time on. And this was just revolutionary for me because, I've been really diligent in setting up time off and regular patterns, I suppose, of rest. And Kathy and I will have some time out together, and we'll make sure we don't talk about work or business as much as we can. And yet sometimes I come back and I'm just like straight back into it. And it's really been inhibiting my ability to take care of myself. And so what I'm asking you is not so much how do you do time off, but how do you rest while you're working? And that's a really, really interesting question. So we need to become more self-aware so we can take better self-care. And the last thing that I want to talk about in this regard is really the value that I've found and the importance, you could say, of support outside myself. So as you can tell from listening to the way that I question and challenge myself, is that I do have a really, I suppose, a really strong process in how I look after myself. But I've also realised that I'm not the best one to do that I need other help. So a couple of years ago, we set in place a process. We call it supervision. Like if you think about medical practitioners, you think about counsellors. I've got some counsellors that work for me. We organise, they have to have organised supervision. And what that means is that they have a qualified external person that speaks into their life, that provides supervision for them to help them to check in, to answer the queries that they're not quite sure they can answer, and really take the best care of themselves. I put that in place for me, and in a professional capacity. And I've got a couple of people around me that I've given permission to ask really hard questions, and to speak specifically into my well-being. But in another example, in New Zealand in 2020, we had what we call Lockdown 1. And the reason we call it that is because there was more than one lockdown. But in Lockdown 1, we understood that there was a whole lot of dynamics going on in people's lives that we couldn't actually fully comprehend at the beginning because we've never done this before. So I got my team together. We were on Zoom because we're all in isolation. We got together on Zoom and I said, hey, look, it's really important that we make sure we've got someone looking out for us in this season. We've each got our families, we've got our challenges, we've got an unknown quantity as far as life goes. Let's each choose someone that we trust and that we can submit ourselves to for supervision. And I want to know who that person is, and I want to know that you're connecting with them. But I do not need to know what you're talking about. But you need to let that person know that if your wheels fall off your trolley and you're not doing so well, that you need to give them permission to contact me so that we can together make sure that we do this well as we journey through Lockdown 1. And subsequently, we went through Lockdown 2. And by the time you listen to this, who knows what we've done. And it was a really good process. And so I set about choosing someone that I trusted that had an awareness of my role and my challenges and the physical, spiritual, and emotional burdens that come with what I do. And I set about having a weekly conversation with this person. We would just do video call or phone call, depending on which part of the lockdown season we were in. Obviously when you're at home, it's real easy to jump on a phone and do a video call. When you're in the car, not such a good idea. So anyway, the point was, had a regular connection with an external person. Now, just the other day, And we still do that. But just the other day, I really felt like I needed to reevaluate a few things. And the honest truth is, that's where this podcast has come from. I just thought, you know what? I don't think I'm going to pop, but there's always a risk of that. And so I've done a lot of what I've shared with you today in this podcast. But also, I went one step further. And I proactively contacted this professional supervisor that I have a relationship with. And I said, hey, look, it's time for a catch-up. Do you want to come in for a coffee? What day suits you this week? And there's a bit of dialogue that went on. And it was really important to me that I didn't forego the opportunity to submit myself to someone who was a professional, that could ask the right questions, that could notice the language, notice what I am saying and what I'm not saying. That takes a special care to make sure that I'm taking care of myself so that I don't pop. And we had this chat, we had coffee, and we sat down, we just talked about things. And at the end of it, there was a few things that were raised, like, hey, look, we need to follow up on this. And I was like, yeah, I'm willing, because I want to do life well. I want to journey the season well. I want to make sure that I'm not angry, that I'm not bitter, that I'm not upset, that I'm not emotionally lashing out to people. Because, guys, the honest truth is, the people that cop it the worst are the ones that are closest to me. And that's my family, and that's not fair. And so if I don't take care of myself, the problem is that those that are closest to me bear the brunt of it, and they bear the scars of it. And that's just not right. So me taking this opportunity to have external support is good for me. It causes me to take a deep look inside myself, but it also, because I'm working with a professional, this person helps me with the tools that are necessary to navigate what I'm walking through. Now that's good for me, but I've also learned that it's good for those that I love and those that are close to me. So today we've been talking about how do we live life without going pop? Because pressures come and pressures go, seasons come and seasons go. But what we're talking about today are the disciplines that will help you to take care of yourself and to ensure you have the right people around you taking care of you so that you don't go pop. So that you do life well, so that you can thrive in seasons where you're being fruitful, but you can also replenish in seasons where you need to replenish. That, always understand the analogies of farming apply to life. There are seasons for sowing, there are seasons for reaping, there are seasons for fertilizing where you invest in good input. There are seasons where you go lean and you give the land a rest. There are seasons when you prune back. All these agricultural analogies, I'm learning that I need to apply them to my life. In the time of rest, you need to just allow the rest and the emptiness and the nothingness of not working or not thinking about work to really just have its work in you. There are times in pruning where you cut back, and pruning is about being more fruitful. So it's cutting back so that you can be more fruitful. And if you've ever worked with fruit trees, you'll know that that's a really important principle for the fruit tree. And if you don't prune a fruit tree, it essentially just can't bear as much fruit. So what are you allowing to be pruned in your life? Look, as I bring this to a close, I'm really going out on a limb here, hoping that a lot of what I'm sharing from my journey in my life is going to help you with your journey and how you do life. Because we all want each other to do well. We want to live life without going pop. And what I'm seeing at the moment is people under an immense amount of pressure that they're possibly not recognizing or acknowledging. There are people that I see that are struggling emotionally, they're struggling relationally, and that's not good, because ultimately if they keep going along that path, they're going to pop, or something's going to pop. I met with a guy recently. I was buying a car, and I went for a test drive, and I met the guy, and he goes, just trying to deal with life, and the car that I was looking to buy, he said it's just not suitable because of the 3 kids, and he says my wife and I, we separated because of over lockdown. And I'm like, well, it's not because of lockdown, but lockdown in New Zealand, it just created pressure in families that brought the ugly to the surface. That meant that they were like, man, we just don't want to do life with each other. There's stuff going on in the way that parents relate to one another, and that's affecting the kids. The counselling that we're providing in our community is for children, and the children are suffering under anxiety and pressure and uncertainty because of what's happening in the home. Why am I telling you this? Well, it's really important how you take care of yourself, because how you take care of yourself affects your behavior. Your behavior is affecting other people. And for some people listening, I think the behavior is actually unhealthy, and therefore it's having a negative effect on other people. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I've recognized it in my own life. So I hope my honesty today has really helped you, that you would live life without going pop, that you'd understand that it's important to reevaluate your priorities. You'd question, are you carrying the wrong, unhealthy or unreasonable expectations? Challenge your paradigms, challenge your excuses, challenge the way you think, because you might be the biggest obstacle to you finding the better way to live. We've got to take a chance. We've got to take an effort, I should say, in being more self-aware, so we can take better self-care. And finally, get some external support to do the journey well. Look, I really hope this has helped. Listen to it again. Make sure you make notes. Write down some of those things. Get a journal. I just bought a new journal the other day, a little A5 size journal from a bookstore, and I'm writing down these questions and I'm writing down the answers. Because I find the writing down process helps me to slow my mind down so I can think more clearly, so I can get more intuitive in the answers that I'm providing, and that's given me really good direction. So why don't you do the same? Get yourself a journal. Get yourself time, write down the questions I've shared with you today, write down better questions if you've got them, and let's do this thing called life, and let's do it well, so that we can thrive, we can be full of joy, laughter, and love living life with those that we journey with. So have a fantastic time on the journey of life, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode of Coffee with Phil.